Sabine, thank you very much for organizing this, and also Tobias and Niels and everybody involved. Again, it's a pity we have to do it like this, but at least we can keep on sharing our knowledge and talking about a great framework, which I still love a lot. So I wrote this demo, this presentation in the time of Apex 5.2, when it was just about to come out, when the Apex team decided that they needed more RESTful service support in Apex. So that's why it's saying from Apex 18x plus. So my demo is on 19.2, but you will get the picture. So first of all, let's have a bit of an agenda so I can get some structure in what I'm saying. We start off by explaining a bit on what is REST. I hope Sabine can keep track on the questions if there are any questions. And then I'll dive into Apex and see how we can utilize those RESTful servers from Apex. The second demo to build a RESTful API from MySQL, I'm gonna skip that. That takes about 15 minutes, and that's for a full hour demo. But I am going to show you the web source module on an ODS instance. I think that's important. And I'm going to show the remote SQL features that are new to ODS 17.4, if I'm not mistaken. So this is me. I'm a Smart for Solutions partner since 2017. I've been in Smart for Apex founding member in 2010. I've been doing Oracle since a few years. I specialize on PL SQL. I mean, that's my 80% of my time goes to PL SQL. And then I try to build Apex applications on top of that using HTML, CSS, and all the techniques involved. And I have a special interest in user interfacing, so not so much the images or the colors, but more the experience, the UX. How to display a form. Should I use the first name and then the last name, or the last name and then the first name? Those kind of questions. And you can find me on Twitter, rhjmartens, richardmartens.blogspot.nl, or smartforsolutions.nl/blog. And you can find the presentation and all the demos you can find on our Git repository. I'll show you the link later on. Oh, I'm a member of the Oracle ACE program. If you want to nominate yourself or somebody you know who does a great contribution to the Oracle Apex community, then use the supplied links to nominate that person. So what is REST? REST is a web service just like a regular web page. But where the result of a web page is most likely to be HTML, in a RESTful service, it's often JSON or XML or CSV. Yeah, so in the bottom you see the client, the web browser, doing a request for a specific website, let's say Google, and Google returns HTML as a response. But now our Apex server, our Oracle database will do a request instead of our browser. We still use the internet, of course. And for example, we are using a web service from Google. Google returns the response in a JSON or XML format. So there's actually no difference between a browser and our database doing an HTTP request. So when doing a request, we normally, with our browser, again, Chrome or Firefox, we do a get. We try to get a certain page from the internet. And the SQL equivalent of that is a select statement. So if we're talking about REST services, the equivalent of a get is a select. But there are other HTTP request types as well. We have post, put, patch, delete, and there are numerous others. You can see them over here. We have get, head, post, put, delete, trace, options, connect, patch, etc., etc. So just have a look at Wikipedia and try to find for REST and HTTP. You will find those request types. So a post does an insert, a put does an update of a row, a full update, a patch patches a specific row, so a partial update, and the delete, of course, deletes a row in the database. When we are doing a get for a specific employee, for example, we need to specify what employee we need to fetch. And for that, we use parameters. And so we can use parameters for fetching a specific row, using the parameter as a primary key, or adding sorting and filtering options to the RESTful services, or authentication and authorization, of course, specifying a username and a password. And those parameters can be sent using different methods. Most of the times you will use the URL pattern and the query string methods. But authentication, for example, often uses the HTTP header. And parameters can also be in the cookie or in the body of the request and the response, because a request also has a body. SOAP envelopes are a good example for request bodies, where a full XML is being sent to the web service, and the web services is handling accordingly. So let's have a look in what REST is returning. So for example, if I request, if I do a get to that server people URI, I will get all the people that the server is aware of, a collection of persons. And in our example, I will use JSON primarily. If I need a specific person, I can put that ID of that specific person into the URL, and I will get one person. If I post, if I create a new person, then of course I don't know the ID yet, and I post to the same URL as I do when I get a collection of the entire list of persons. So the URL for the first get and the post are the same. If I want to update the person, I use the put or the patch, and I get the person as stored in the database. And in delete, of course, I also have to specify the specific person I need to delete. So let's see if I can make a small demo. And for that, I'm using a tool which is called Postman. Postman looks a lot like a Chrome browser, but you can specify a lot of extra options like parameters, authorization, etc. First of all, I'm going to enable a specific schema in my Apex environment. I believe it's this one. Yep. Let me see. How does this look? Let's start from the scratch. And when I go to SQL Workshop RESTful Services, I come here. And as you can see, my schema is not yet registered with ORDS. Apex offers me the option to do that really simply. I enable the RESTful services and I install, for this demo, I install the sample service. And as you can see here, I have a lot of services now. I can go to employees and open that up. I see one get. So this service is responding on the get. And I can copy the URL and just have a look on what this does. And you can see I get the list of persons. Yeah? Here you see I have another URL which gives me a very specific employee. If I open that up, I get just that one employee. And of course, this is done by just another getter, so to speak, and that's this one. It opens. And of course, you can create these using Apex as well. In the Apex Builder, you can create all these web services. Yeah. If I can use the browser to do a specific request, I can do that in Postman as well. For example, I could, let me see, is it the correct one? I can send this specific get and I get Smith back. And if I now change this into a patch, now we also have to specify the body of the request. So I'm patching employee 7369. So I have to go to the body of the request. I paste it in and I change Smith into, let's say, my own name. Make sure that this is JSON, that the request is actually JSON, and I do the request. Oops, I get an error. What is my error? The method is not allowed. In this case, I should have used a put. And I get back the result as it is stored in the database. So if I now go back to my SQL developer and I do a select star from AMP, you'll notice that I have Martens here, where we used to have Smith. So I can do updates just from a browser. And normally you would do this with authentication and authorization, of course. That's beyond the scope of the presentation. The idea is that if I create a person, I get the person as stored in the database. If I put a person, I get also the person as stored in the database. And if I delete one, I get a rows deleted step. This you saw me doing earlier. So this was really basically what Apex offers us, or ORDS to be more specific. But we can also create, Apex can be the client of other RESTful services. For example, weather data. I have a small URL here, which gives me the JSON version of the weather in this example, The Hague. But I could use my own home city here as well. You can see that the URL changed. And if I can do that again, if I can do that in my browser, I can also do it from Apex. So let's go to my builder. Let's do it properly. Please don't break down. REST demo. And let's create a page to that specific real life API. First of all, I'm going to share components because I need to inform Apex on where that source is. Let's go to web source modules. I'm not using the legacy web service reference no more, and I create a new service from scratch. This time it's simple HTTP. And I just paste in the URL. If I click on the question mark, and that you should do, if you do new things, just have a look where the help is saying, please do not use query string parameters. And here, there is a query string parameter called location. So we should get to strip that. So let's strip that query string parameter and just use the plain URL. So the remote server will be real life, and the service URL is specified automatically. We hit next. We don't need any authentication, but I do need some advanced settings in this case because I removed the parameter. So I'm clicking advanced, and I create a query string variable, which is paste location, and the value is, let's say, Amsterdam. So now I can hit discover, and Apex does the request for me and shows the result that you see here in the JSON format, shows the result in a tabular format. And it also shows the data profile. So what kind of data are we actually talking about? So we create the web source. So we now have a web source. It's called real life demo. And if you open it up, you can have a look on what is actually being generated by the wizard. You can adjust accordingly if you want to. So now let's create a new page. Create a page. It will be a report. Let's do a classic one. Let's not make it too hard. Real life demo. Oh. Next. Let's create a new navigation entry. My database is thinking on what to do next. So on this time, it's a web source. And here I have my real life demo. I want all the columns, in this case, I create. I will be taken to the page builder for this new page. And now comes the tricky part. Because I specified a parameter for this RESTful service, I can adjust this in my report settings. So if I go to my parameters section over here and open it up, you see that my location is mentioned over here, and by default it's Amsterdam. I prepared the demo on page 1. I'm using the same web service, but here I added an extra item, P1 city, and in my parameters location I'm referring to that new page item. So if I now run this page, you'll notice that it's using Tilburg or Rotterdam or Eindhoven or De Bilt or Amsterdam, Utrecht, and you can see it's quite fast. I mean, even though the service, the database is actually fetching the data from a remote site, my refresh is quite fast. Weather data. And if I can do this with weather data, fetching it, I could also do it for Google services or MySQL or PostgreSQL or whatever API is available on the internet. And with this option, Apex goes rogue. We can not only fetch the data, but we can also store it externally. So we can start developing on top of Jira or Confluence or GitHub, online accounting applications, other databases, Google services like I mentioned before, mail, documents, calendar. Well, Google has a gazillion of services that are available through a RESTful API. But we do pay some penalties. We do pay a small performance penalty, and we pay the penalty of declarability. The more recent Apex versions are better at this, but in the past, if you're having a look at Apex 18 or 19, for example, updates are not that easy. You might need PL SQL for that, but it is possible to do updates as well. So we talked about Apex being a client. We talked about we really quickly created the demo services on ORDS using the Apex Builder. But ORDS has some extra on top of the normal REST implementations. And it allows Apex to retrieve some extra information, some extra metadata during the create web service module wizard. But we still need to add parameters, bodies, etc. to the methods that we need to declare. And if you want to enable an auto REST object, we can do that using ORDS enable object. So let's have a look. I have over here in my, I should go to the correct environment. I have all my modules over here. Let's refresh that. So these are all the URLs I can use: emp info, employees, bloody version, etc., etc. Yeah. So for example, my employee feed, I can copy this in and put it over here, and I get all the employees. Needs to think about it a little bit. ODS needs to run some queries, etc. But it's working. So let's create a really quick, in a really quick and dirty way, the RESTful service on the emp table. For that, I go to my PL SQL developer, but it also works from SQL developer, of course. And the only thing I need to do is to enable I have to enable a specific object. I'm logged into my schema, and within the schema, I'm going to enable the emp object. And I need to provide an object alias. For example, I could call this whatever test. But let's not do that now. Let's just keep it plain and simple. If I run this, it's executed now. And if I go back to my resource templates and I go to my enabled objects, you'll notice that I have one object that is enabled. And now, instead of copying the URL from the web service definition, I need to use the alias over here. So emp. So my ODS is going into the RIM schema, which is my personal schema, and then open there the emp alias, which is the alias for the employee. So if I enter this, I will get a full list. But I can also get a specific employee. And if I can do this, I can also do that in Postman, and I will get the same result, of course. Oh, I did something wrong because I accidentally did a put over here, but that's not a problem now. So if I do a get here, then I will get Smith back, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, I get Smith back. And I can get all the employees. Here are all the employees with the URLs. And I had to do nothing for that. The only thing I did was enable a specific table. So that's really nice feature of ODS. And you saw me doing it accidentally, but you can even do updates through this. And there is another feature I'd like to mention from ODS, which is the remote SQL feature, the RESTful, I call it. It allows querying the remote database and use it as a database link over HTTP. So you can do SQL, you can do calls on PL SQL packages, well, almost anything you want from SQL and PL SQL you can use. And Apex out of the box can utilize this in the classic report, the interactive report, and I believe in 20 it also uses, it's also possible in the interactive grid. In essence, the select stuff. Not yet out of the box, as far as I'm aware, but I haven't been able to look at 20 properly, are the components that do updates. So the first thing you need to do to get this working is to go to your ODS configuration and add 2 lines of code in your defaults.xml. And those 2 lines are over here, are these 2 lines. REST enable SQL.active needs to be true, and you need to increase the maximum rows the JDBC connector is fetching. I put it here to 1,000, but it depends on your database and it depends on what kind of data is in there. Right? Those 2 lines will enable the REST enable SQL feature. And then you have to enable the schema, like we enabled the the object earlier. We have to enable a schema this time. And here with the mapping pattern, you make kind of the alias. And we need at least ODS 17.3. So what does that do? Now we can enable the schema, which I did in the beginning already. I did that over here. Did I do it over here? No, I did it over here. I did it over here with the enable schema button I had in the beginning. I can deregister, do it again quickly, register schema, install sample schema. So now my schema is enabled with the schema alias of rim. So now I can do nice stuff. And as you can see, this is a different server. This is our development server. Let's go to the beginning. And the one in Google Chrome, I'm using Canary in my as a making a difference between the two. I'm using Google Chrome, and this is a local. This is my Docker instance. So here, if I go to shared components again, I can actually create REST-enabled SQL. I can create the name. Let's call it rim at Apex 18. And my endpoint URL is, of course, rim. Well, here, normally you can set your credentials. How do you want to log in? I could use basic authentication, which means here I put my schema name, my username, my regular username, and my regular Oracle password. But I already did that before, and then it stores it so I can reuse those credentials. And now it's doing a request, and as you can see, the REST-enabled SQL service is available. So now I can do some nice stuff. I mean, this is only kind of creating the database link. My tests will do the same request to check whether the remote service is available. And now I can go to my builder. Let's go over here and create a new page and do something on the M table. So I'm going to create a new page. I'm going to create a form on a table with report with form. Interactive report, department. I want it in a model dialog, a breadcrumb, parent is home, departments next. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a new navigation entry. The data source. Now is the exciting part. Let's think. What does Apex have? It has REST-enabled SQL service. So now I can choose my REST-enabled SQL service. And I can actually have a look on what table I want to use. So let's use the department table. I did not create any web services for that. No, I want something different. I want to use a SQL query. Select star from depth order by followed by d dot number. Can I change? Oops. So even fetching and checking the SQL is working over the database link. Primary key is, of course, department number. I create. And I run. This is all out of the box. I did not program, well, apart from that one line that enabled the service. And I can actually have a look at departments, open up, and change this, for example, in Amsterdam. As you can see, it actually did Amsterdam. Let's have a look in my table as well. Oops. It's actually changed New York into Amsterdam, and this is on the remote server. A small disadvantage, my reverse proxy doesn't work yet. I think I need to put the correct parameters in there. What you see me using now is not an Nginx proxy, but an Apache proxy, and that works just fine. So this you saw me creating within shared components the REST-enabled SQL. And you saw me pasting in the URL. If you want to add some extra authentication, and I would definitely advise you to do so, you can use SQL Developer to actually create the clients and to grant specific roles and to grant specific access to specific objects to those roles. Client ID is the schema name and client secret is the password. That's the minimum thing you need to do there. And then you will get the test result that it was successful. You even saw me fetching the validate query feature to see if it's working or not, if the query is actually valid. So, any questions that I need to answer? Sabine, did you see any questions?
Yes, there are some. Someone's asking, I think building REST service on MySQL with Node.js and consuming this in Apex is vital. Could you share the code with a quick overview?
They can send me a request on my email richard.martens@gmail.com, and I will reply on that. And if I have it properly prepared, I will put it into our Git account. Our Git is at smart4solutions.atlassian.net. No, it was something different. It was bitbucket.org. Smart4solutions. So if you go to bitbucket.org smart4solutions, maybe you can share that. Sabine?
If you can make it a question, then I can share it with everyone. Is it possible to copy and paste it into the questions panel?
Questions? I cannot paste anything here. No, I cannot do
or
anything.
chat?
Chat, I did it. I just added to the chat.
Ah, yeah, good. I'll share it then.
So here you can, I will add the extra option for the RESTful services, and there you can download all the demo applications and the steps you need to do to create the ODS services on your ODS servers. And there I will also try to touch the Node.js creation on MySQL, because that goes a bit further and there are different options and there are standard applications available from Node.js that open up a specific type of data source, be it MySQL or PostgreSQL or whatever there is. I hope that answers the question.
You'll get an export of the questions and the questioners anyway, Richard, so
Okay.
you can get in touch with them. There's one more question. Does Oracle RDS support HTTP status 418? I don't know from the top of my head which one that is.
Result 418. Isn't that I'm a teapot? Yes, it does. Cheers.
Okay, that's answered. And another question. Apex REST is lovely, but the challenge I get is getting HTTPS endpoints. Can you touch on that? I set up wallets and SQLs, but I can't send emails.
Well, that has to do with your Apex configuration, I think, and your ORDS and Tomcat configuration. I'm using a wallet creator. Let me see. Oracle ORDS. No, it was Oracle wallet wallet creation script. And then there was something on GitHub site, github.com. I'm using a specific wallet creation script. Ah, there it is. Let me put that over here as well. And this works for all my instances. It opens up all the known certificate providers and puts those in a wallet and provides a really long wallet password. And this works for me. I mean, if it's good enough for Larry, then it's good enough for me. On the Oracle Cloud, also all HTTP requests are open. So this is a big change. I mean, I don't need to download certificates no more, and I open up everything. And I use Let's Encrypt on my proxy server. So I would not know why not to use HTTPS. And if you have specific questions, then write me a personal email.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got time for one last question. Is there a specific definition for allowing REST over SSL TLS?
Is there a specific
definition for allowing a REST over SSL TLS?
No, because in the end, they are just requests. Also, the remote SQL feature I showed you are just RESTful requests and puts and posts and patches and that kind of stuff, only to very specific URLs, and the bodies, etc., and the specific formats in which those requests need to make, of course, are are documented at Oracle. So you could create your own stuff, but there is nothing that you could not or disallow on, except maybe you could do some configuration on your proxy or on your Tomcat instance to not allow that. That I can imagine.
Okay, thanks a lot, Richard.
Yeah.
So even if you can't join us tonight, I hope you'll have a nice evening.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for sharing. As I said, you'll get all the questions in an export, and then you can get in touch with the single people.
Sabine, thank you a lot. I hope to be able to hug you soon.
Yeah, same here. Bye, Richard.
Bye.